My 16th birthday has all the makings of a good, sad country song. I was an amateur boxer, and I had made it to a national competition, to the championship fight, and lost on my 16th birthday. The only thing that made that loss harder to take was when I arrived back home to the news that on that same day, my dog had been hit by a car and had died. Old Bingo, B-I-N-G-O, Bingo was his name-o. And I knew loss and heartache because that dog had been my best friend. When I had moved from California to Montana and didn't know anyone and didn't really know if I would and didn't feel like I was going to fit in, I had this dog. Everyone who's ever had the love of a pet and lost that pet knows that ache. It's a kind of strange aching because it seems like God puts these animals in our lives with a kind of unconditional love that isn't always easy to come by in humanity. But when we lose a pet, or we hear of someone losing a pet, we may even feel silly for hurting so much. We think it's just an animal. But if we're honest, we would say that these animals are not just animals to us, because at various times in our lives, perhaps like my dog Bingo, God will, through an animal, give love to us. So when we lose that animal, we're losing not only the animal itself, but all of the love that, it seems to me, flows from the fountain of God through these relationships. Here's 4 ideas that are biblical ideas about this topic for those of us who have lost. I know so many people these days with sick animals who will be losing or who are aching the thought of losing that animal. First, God made a world full of life, and he called it good. You know, from the very beginning of the first pages of Genesis, before pain and death entered into the world through rebellion, God filled that garden with life and said that it was good, and it remains good. And he gave Adam and Eve a primary job to protect and preserve the garden, to care for and tend this garden. Even Adam's first job was taxonomy, naming all and identifying all of the animals and all of the plants. God was saying, these living creatures are a part of my goodness, so take care of them. That means our affection for the animals. God created those animals and gave us affection for these animals and a love for the creation of which we are a part. God made a world full of life and called it good. And when our hearts ache because a piece of that world full of life filled an area of our life and our heart, in our grieving the animal, perhaps we could say we're recognizing that it was God loving us through that creature to begin with. Secondly, love for a pet reflects the heart of God's compassion. Proverbs 12:10 says, whoever is righteous has regard for the life of his beast. That's a verse we don't quote that often, but it tells us something very profound. Mercy and righteousness go hand in hand. You know, I seldom trust someone who my dog doesn't. And likewise, love for creation, love for animals, love for all the life in this earth is a reflection of recognition that it's God who wove these things into being. It's a part of our worship life. When we care for an animal, when we weep over its suffering, or we're moved by its loyalty, or we're heartbroken over its loss, we're exercising the very compassion of the type that flows from God himself to us and all of his creation. So if you're grieving right now the loss of an animal or its impending physical departure, that's okay. Don't feel guilty. That love is recognition of the love of God that comes to us in his creation through the things that he's made. And remember, we are a part of this creation as well. Third idea, God's plan for creation includes redemption, not just for people, but for all things. Listen to what the Bible says in Romans chapter 8 and verse 21. It says that creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay. You see, redemption, if we look at the return of Jesus and the establishment of his kingdom forever, redemption includes all of God's creation, of which we are a part. It's a sweeping promise. It tells us that what was broken by sin will one day be made whole, not only in our hearts or in human civilization, in human relationships and relationships with God, but of the whole creation. Will your exact dog be in heaven? I'd like to quote C.S. Lewis on this one, who said, "Why not?" The Bible doesn't give us a lot of direct answers to questions like that, but it does point us to this bigger, sweeping, broader truth. In the new heaven and the new earth, there will be no loss, no decay, no broken bond between God's creatures. If animals were a part of God's good plan in the beginning, it's hard to imagine a world remade in perfection without them. We see reflected in passages like the lion and the lamb laying together, as is depicted in this beautiful little piece of art. We find those kinds of passages in the Bible, and it is reflective of this bigger idea that all of creation is included in all of God's redemption and his plan. So finally, grief is the cost of love, but love is always worth it. C.S. Lewis put it this way: the pain now is part of the happiness then. That's the deal. That's true of every love, including the love we give and receive even from our pets or animals that we tend to. When a dog curls up beside you after a hard day or greets you at the door like an old friend, like you're the best thing that ever showed up in its life, that's love in its simplest, purest form. Perhaps God even allows us to have these relationships so that they point us to the deepest aspects of love and loyalty, of forgiveness and mercy, of kindness and redemption. So if you're grieving the loss of a pet today, remember this: God sees all of our pain, whether it's over the loss of an animal, which is a part of his creation, of which we are a part. We're all sort of in this together, you might say. God sees our pain. He understands it, of every pain of every sort and of every category and every type. And the same God who cares for the sparrows, who notices even the smallest creature falls, that's in the New Testament too. One day, all creation will be made new. God bless you today in our relationships with animals. Let us never forget that in our relationship with everything God puts in our lives, the love and the life that we receive from it is really God passing love and life through it. God bless you today.